All right.
Open. We'll pose with that. Happy with the sign.
You know, from 2005 to now, basically, I've been trying to take part in studying the species that we fish for here. And it's been really enlightening to me. It's lots to talk to clients about and great intel for an angling guide to understand what these fish do and how they behave.
Bull trout are considered an indicator species because they need diverse and healthy habitat. If bull trout can sustain and be productive within a watershed, then it's likely the watershed can sustain those other species that are native to that watershed. They colonized coastal watersheds at the time of glaciation. So they're native, they're endemic. They came into our rivers when our rivers were formed.
When you catch your first one, you're like, wow, this is cool. Immediately I thought, wow, this is like the northern pike of the West Coast. You know, and northern pike back in Ontario was my favorite sort of target species to go after because I knew they were, you know, an aggressive predator and they were more active at certain times of the year. And so I would spend, you know, a lot of my time like chasing a big predatory fish. And so the bull trout became my go-to species to chase around. I think the oldest bull trout on record is about 24 years old from what I've read in scientific articles. So they can get very, very old and very, very big, right? Depending on what their food sources are. They're a species that grows at a very slow rate. They don't spawn until they're 5 or 6 years old, 45 to 50 centimeters or roughly 18 inches. So when you catch that really big fish, it could be 12 or 15 years old, say the 10 pounders, right? Those fish in the sort of 60 to 70 centimeter range or 24 to 26 inches, they're old fish. They're grandpa. They've seen, you know, at least 2 to 3 generations of Chinook salmon. They've seen probably 10 generations of pink salmon.
The Squamish watershed is unique and is really good for bull trout because it offers the type of habitat they need. There are several large tributaries that are glacial fed that come into the Squamish. It's well connected. The habitat is cold, it's complex, it provides all the things that bull trout need.
The Squamish River gets 4 different species of salmon. Chinook salmon start arriving sort of May, June. Then you get the pinks and the odd year, which begin arriving, depending on how big the return is going to be. They'll start in July and continue through September. And then the coho begin to arrive mid-September, and they'll continue to arrive all the way in through December, different runs of coho. And then the final species is the chum salmon, which begins sort of beginning of October and carry through November, with the bulk of the spawning in November. The salmon life cycle is what gives bull trout their food. Whether it's the dying salmon giving enough nutrient loading for insects or enough eggs for food or fry for food, flesh for food off the salmon cycle. Then there's the sculpins, which is sort of the winter food source when there's not a whole lot of salmon bits and particles and those sort of food items out there for bull trout. Obviously there's smaller fish, rainbows. I mean, they're a piscivorous fish. They're going to eat all fish parts, whether it's the flesh or eggs or fry. That's what they're going to grow on. And if there's a lot of fish around, and there's going to be a lot of food for the bulls, and they're going to get really big.
Probably from the time of Captain Vancouver, we've been a logging community of harvesting the logs and moving them down the river and getting them out into the ocean. We certainly have a lot of evidence of that throughout the estuary of old steam donkeys and cable systems, and almost all the trails that you walk on, there's usually a logging history to that, being a skid road or something to move wood along. When I moved up here in the early 90s, and I went up to the Squamish forest road, all the way up. It was clear cut the entire way up.
The Mamquam drainage was completely clear cut. You can see when you sit in Squamish and you look up at the Mamquam mountain, and the trees are very young compared to the rest of the landscape. And the Mamquam would blow out. Every time it rained, just too much water would come through and send everything down with it.
I don't want to sound crass, but Squamish seemed like a community that was crying out at the time for a little bit of environmental awareness, being very heavily into the logging community. We, from 1995 until 1998, did assessments on all the watercourses in the entire watershed. I have flown, walked, swum over 144 watercourses in both watersheds, identifying areas that had been impacted by logging, to restore habitat for migratory fish, removing anadromous barriers for migratory fish. Also, a huge component of the project was working to provide a retraining and alternatives to logging to get into different sectors, including biology, fisheries management for out-of-work logging communities. So since 2013, we've been working very closely hiring InStream to help us with our fisheries monitoring program.
We've done quite a few different studies on bull trout spanning the last decade or so. Our first was a radiotelemetry study. We've done some work just to get a handle on the number of bull trout in the watershed, some more complex statistical modeling to see how many fish are in the river. And then more recently, we're just wrapping up a study to understand exploitation rates of bull trout.
The study was specifically for a recapture rate. That study went on for 2 years, so I tagged 150 bull trout. I would tag a bull trout with 2 tags, and then I'd release the fish, and anglers would then catch that fish, and on the tags would be a phone number. So they would clip the tags off, call the number, and read the 2 numbers off to the study managers, and the anglers rewarded for that in order to get buy-in from the anglers to report the catch. In the past, the Squamish area has had industry using it without a lot of regard for the repercussions of what they're doing. That's all changed now. And now we're at a point where the drainage itself is beginning to operate like it should. It's absorbing the rainfalls and it's not blasting out like it used to in the 90s. A lot of work has been done to help salmon species. So as these projects get worked on, you're going to see the cumulative effects of positive change versus what happened early on, which was the negatives of building a training dike and using creosote pilings in the sound and not paying attention to the environment. And any industry going in has new and important protocols to follow, and the bull trout are going to benefit from that.
As a biologist, what I think is most cool about these fish is just how elastic and plastic they are. They have several different behavioral strategies and migratory strategies that allows them to use habitat in most of the watershed. And they can change their behavioral strategy according to the environmental conditions at the time. Where that diversity is what makes them just a really cool fish to study.
Can you help me? I'm just an animal trying to rest my bones. Oh.
Best not come scratching around all this here I
You mean to say the grass and the dirt and the oldest river sounds. Oh. It's all a game when you're born on the right side of the road.
Chunky because he's like Oh no, it's just long. It's really big actually.
Ultimately, we want to understand how fish are using their habitats, where they're moving to and when, and in understanding that, we can potentially protect critical habitat for them to execute their life history and exist in our watershed.
Working with these groups has always been important to me. If you're a user of the space, you should contribute somehow and help with the actual resource that you're using. You've got to take up the torch and go and find those organizations and give back. We have something very, very special in Squamish, and we need to respect it.